What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Sports. And I guess you could say this is late breaking news. This happened in the early stages of the afternoon, but I figured, wait until nighttime, wait until people are home to able to, get onto YouTube and watch this thing. So let's get into the business of today. Sixers still getting over Game 7 loss to the Boston Celtics on how just terrible that entire game was. Still can't believe it was that terrible. I just can't believe that, your team completely dropped a goose egg in probably the most important game in your franchise's recent history. A chance to go to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 20 plus years. It still just mind boggles me to this very day. And we're only 2 days since getting eliminated. So yeah, it's still very fresh on the mind. Joel Embiid having a terrible game, James Harden being terrible, and just everything in total. Jason Tatum proving to, Joel Embiid, oh, this is how you close out a game. This is how you step up in the most important moments, dropping 50-plus points in a Game 7. Probably the most important game in a playoff series because of the winner-go-home game. So, yeah, still very stings to this day, a couple of days after Game 7 happened on this past Sunday. But we knew after that loss, there was going to be a domino effect of changes that are going to happen for this Sixers team, and probably the most obvious one that was going to happen was Doc Rivers getting canned. I'm not going to sit here and blame Doc Rivers because I thought he was the least of the problems for the Sixers in that entire series against the Boston Celtics. I honestly think this entire season, Doc Rivers really wasn't that major of a problem in, comparison to his previous seasons here. But overall, it's just, I wouldn't care if they kept Doc Rivers. I don't care if they fired Doc Rivers. This is just, the situation where, once again, you failed in the playoffs. And that's a reason why, you were fired after this. So that's basically the issue why. And we're also fighting through a little bit of internet issues here, but we're just going to fight through it. I've been getting this weird feedback the entire day, so basically it's just going to be a battle through the entire thing. But I digress in that certain parts. It was going to happen regardless. I just think that was, right now, if you're trying to do a major, reset right here, just to, see what you can do for next season, I think Doc Rivers was probably the easiest one to let go. And then you see, the breaking news from Woj earlier this afternoon talking about, the possible coaching candidates that could be involved for the Sixers. There's quite a few coaches that could be on the list in terms of, what they're looking for in Daryl Morey and all of that. So, just basically starting off from this Woj report, Philadelphia 76ers dismissed head coach Doc Rivers on Tuesday, the team announced. The Sixers were eliminated in the Eastern Conference semifinals for a third straight season, losing 112-88 in Game 7 to the Boston Celtics on Sunday. The search for a new coach is expected to include Mike Budenholzer, Sam Cassell, Mike D'Antoni, Nick Nurse, Frank Vogel, and Monty Williams, sources tell ESPN. So, looking at some of those names, you get Nick Nurse from the recent, Toronto Raptors who got fired, won a NBA Finals in 2019. Mike Budenholzer, he won the NBA championship with the Milwaukee Bucks a couple of seasons ago. He just got fired for losing in the first round with the Milwaukee Bucks against the Miami Heat this year. So there's definitely, some recent, head coaches with some recent championship experience. Sam Cassell, who is, part of your coaching staff. He was an assistant coach, so that could be an in-house option if you want to make him, the head coach for the foreseeable future. Mike D'Antoni, it's, he has connections. The Daryl Morey back to Houston connections with James Harden. That just sounds like to me it's more of a pleaser for James Harden. That just really rubs me the wrong way if Mike D'Antoni is going to be that guy if he does get hired. I know there was a ton of, listening to the sports radio scene today. There were so many Sixers fans that wanted to hire Jay Wright from, Villanova. This guy's been retired for a couple of years. This guy's enjoying retirement. He's won a couple of national titles. Is he really going to want to come out of retirement to, go into the NBA where he really has no experience in? That's just, I don't know what the obsession is with Sixers fans and Jay Wright thinking he's going to right the ship and he's going to turn this team into an instant championship contender. I just personally don't see it. Jay Wright, he's a brilliant coach. He's a one of the top head coaches in, probably college basketball history. But, to think that he's just going to come into this Sixers squad into the NBA with very no experience at all, and he's just going to immediately turn this ship around, I completely doubt that. But Mike D'Antoni, it's just, that really just sounds like it's a pleaser for James Harden, and I don't like that at all, in my honest opinion. It's no knock on Mike D'Antoni, the coach. It's just for the fact that James Harden has really rubbed us the wrong way over, the past couple, basically since that Game 7, because he's the most confusing player in my entire opinion. He'll drop you 2 40-point games, and then he'll go completely non-existent for the rest. James Harden, he's supposed to be way better on an extra day's rest, which he did get. He got 2 extra days of rest going into Game 7, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, Harden gets an extra bit of rest, he's going to be good to go. But no, he's completely not looking at the basket. He's, getting turnovers, forcing the ball the other way, not getting it to Joel Embiid, keeping the ball in a pick and roll, which has been working basically your entire season and your entire playoff run, is the pick and roll with Joel Embiid. James Harden handing it off to Joel Embiid and him doing his thing, but no, he completely looked away from that. And then James Harden is just, completely looking away from not taking a shot. He passes up wide open threes, tries to drive to the basket, passes it all the way out, and then becomes a turnover or just becomes an errant pass. And he got these weird miscommunications with him and Joel Embiid where it becomes a backcourt violation. It just doesn't make sense to me, in my honest opinion. It just really sounds like it's trying to please James Harden. And I know there's a lot of reports out there that Joel Embiid is not happy that Doc Rivers got fired. At the end of the day, Doc Rivers was going to get fired regardless, in my honest opinion, which round they lost in. Just to happen to the fact that it has to be another round 2. I know at this point you can also put to the fact that you're constantly replacing coach after coach after coach after coach. At some point, it does have to come down onto the players not performing to their capabilities, and that happened with Joel Embiid in Game 7. That happened with a lot of people. PJ Tucker is hitting all these threes in the corner, trying to keep you involved, trying to get you a little bit of a spark here. Tyrese Maxey hits a couple of shots. Tobias Harris was having a much better game, trying to, get it, keep it within range. And so, okay, guys, we're doing this thing here. We need you, Joel. We need you, James, to do something. And those guys just completely didn't do it. When you're seeing, Brogdon, Marcus Smart on the other side for Boston, they're hitting their shots, they're creating their own looks, and then, they do their thing, and then eventually Jason Tatum takes over. That's what they did in Game 6. They kept it close, they kept it within reach. Granted, the Sixers were also completely collapsing in that point, just struggling to hit their baskets and shots. And then Jason Tatum just woke up in that fourth quarter in Game 6, and that's where the series was lost. When you're not able to close out a team on your home court in a Game 6, when you're up 3-2, it's at that point the writing was on the wall. The way you played down the stretch in that Game 6, it completely carried over into Game 7. Jason Tatum kept on that confidence and that hot streak, and that's just what he does. He's going to keep taking those shots, even though that he's been terrible basically the entire series up to that point. He's a star in his league. A star is going to take those shots. They're going to keep getting their looks. They're going to keep doing it until it eventually falls in and then eventually turns into a stretch of constantly scoring. And that's exactly what happened for Tatum. We just didn't see Joel Embiid take over the game. We saw James Harden do it a couple of times, but, the other times he would go completely lost and completely invisible. It's just like there's 2 different tiers of James Harden at his peak. Like there's 2 ceilings to James Harden. When he's at the top of his ceiling, it's amazing to watch, and it's a fantastic game. When you're on the lowest of the part of the floor, it's incredible how bad he is. There's no in between at that point. It's either one extreme to the other extreme. It doesn't make any sense. Granted, James Harden is an older player, and he's definitely not what he once was in Houston, but, you still should be able to come up with maybe a 25-point burger with 10-plus assists. You don't have to go from drastic 40-plus point performances to minus 10, sub-10-point performances. It just doesn't make any sense, in my opinion. So that's the issues there, and Doc Rivers, he's the scapegoat right now until whatever other dominoes fall for the Sixers team. We don't know what's going to happen with Harden. If he's going to come back, I'm assuming it's going to relate to what happens with the next head coach. I I don't know in terms of Joel Embiid. I doubt that's the last thing that's going to happen is him getting traded. I think the only way that Joel Embiid gets traded from the Sixers is if he requests a trade out of Philadelphia. I think it's a 95% chance that he does stay here for next year. And I don't know what you do right now because, there's going to be a lot of people that, are going to doubt Joel Embiid, and rightfully so. He's going to take a lot of flack, and rightfully so, because he completely no-showed in Game 7, the most important game of the year, the most important game of his career. You won an MVP, you were the MVP of the league, and you deserved it, but I don't care that you had an LCL injury. I don't care. You were able to play. You were healthy enough to play, regardless if you were 50%, 60%, 70%, or 80%. You were healthy enough to play. You got to find a way to take over that game and finally, prove to us that you can get to the third round. And once again, for the third straight season, you did it again. Now, years past, in years past, you could probably grab onto, that there was a little bit of hope. Okay, maybe after this year they can improve. Joel Embiid has improved year after year after year. His conditioning has improved year after year after year. It's just the fact that, when they come up with this big of a dud, it just doesn't give you any hope right now. And Sixers fans are just completely lost. They're completely gutted. They're completely heartbroken with this team because they have no idea what else is going to happen. You can't run it back with this same exact team and expect to go and win a championship because at this point, with the way this roster is constructed, it's not going to happen. You're seeing Tobias Harris once again talk about mental toughness after the game. It's just, how many more years are we going to be talking about mental toughness when you get rid of guys like Ben Simmons, you add a James Harden, you get rid of all these other different type of guys. You're constantly changing head coaches and all that stuff. You're reshaping the bench, and you're still talking about mental toughness. At that point, it becomes, you're looking down the face of your star players. Joel Embiid and all that stuff. So, like I said, I don't think Joel is going to be traded. When I was talking about that stuff, directly after the game, that was right in the feels, right after the game, and reactions like that. But, like I said, 95% chance I don't think he's gone. I think the only chance that he is gone is if he requests a trade out. And then you get all that stuff with, Jimmy Butler, what if they lose to the Boston Celtics? Does Jimmy Butler try to, convince him a little bit more to come down to Miami, form something down there? So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of instances that can happen, but like I said, I don't think the most likely thing to happen is Joel Embiid. He's most likely not going to get traded. I do not expect that to happen whatsoever. It's just really what's going to be surrounded by him again. And, for next season, it's going to be a lot of, Sixers fans. Once again, it's going to be even worse than it was this year because there was already a lot of fans that did not care about the regular season, and especially with, the 12-12 start that they had to start this year. There was a lot of people that, really not going to care. It was basically for the past few years, okay, you're going to have a good regular season. You're going to get 50-plus wins. What are you going to do in the playoffs? And that's going to be tenfold this next season. It is. Now, maybe our opinions change once we get closer and we see what this team does over the course of the offseason to make some changes. But honestly, I have no idea what those changes are going to be. I have no idea which coach you're going to get. Personally, I don't it's nothing against Mike D'Antoni. I just don't want to appease James Harden because at this point, yes, I'm very pissed at the way Joel Embiid performed in Game 7, but he is still the star of your team. James Harden is the number 2 guy at this point. I don't think you should be trying to look to appeal to James Harden, but, Daryl Morey goes back, eons with James Harden. So I have no idea what's going to happen there. Are you really willing to give James Harden an exorbitant amount of money for 2, 3, 4 years? In my personal opinion, no. I don't want to give James Harden that much money because of how polarizing he can be on the court with good games and then he super inconsistency. And it's only going to get worse as, father time catches up more to him. We're already seeing it still. It's going to get worse as he gets older. And the older he gets, the less, explosive games he's probably going to have. So that's the biggest concern there. And I don't want to see the Sixers lock themselves up into a bad contract with James Harden. You already locked yourself up long-term with Tobias Harris, and he's most likely gone this offseason. I have no idea what they're going to do with that. Whether you're packaging him with Maxey to get some other type of big name out there on the market. I doubt Dame Lillard is available because we all know how he feels and how much he wants to stay in Portland. I don't know if that's possible. And I'm not sure of like what other trades that you can do with a Tobias Harris contract, even though this is going to be the last year of his contract, so teams will be more willing to eat the contract rather than over a few seasons when it's just one more year left. I personally don't know what type of player you go out and trade Tobias Harris for. If you're trying to go get another big name player, you're going to have to package someone like a Tyrese Maxey along with that. And then some of the other free agents, I think Paul Reed's a free agent, Shake Milton and all that. You're going to have to rework the bench because you need depth on the bench. Boston's depth completely outclassed yours. And granted, yes, you still took them to 7 games. You had a chance to win it in Game 6 and you completely choked on that aspect and completely dropped an egg in Game 7. Your bench needs more contribution. It definitely does. Jalen McDaniels completely took himself out of the rotation in that entire series because he looked entirely scared. Where you're seeing minutes from Daniel House giving you 10 points in Game 5 and you knew that wasn't going to be sustainable. You're seeing, George Niang out there for a few minutes, and, he can have those spurts when he hits a couple of threes in a row, but that's not sustainable with the way how poor he is defensively. Like, you just need other options that are off the bench that could be really good contributors when, Joel Embiid is off the court. Because sometimes when you see those bench rotations out there, it's just, ugly. It's really ugly. Then you see, guys coming off the bench for Boston when they eventually, put White off the bench with Brogdon. And it worked well. It worked well for him. And the Sixers looked completely, just lost when they put Williams out there, 2 bigs on Embiid. They just could not figure out how to adjust. And yeah, that definitely goes to Doc Rivers too, because he brought the quote out that we're prepared for wherever they throw at us. And that obviously looked like you weren't. In my honest opinion, it just didn't. And it was obvious. It's a fact. You weren't prepared. You looked completely lost out there. And just some of these other coaches, yeah, I would like a Nick Nurse just because of, the championship experience. Monty Williams could be a choice, the Phoenix Suns former head coach. He also was a part of the Sixers coaching staff before he got hired by Phoenix, so definitely players on this team are familiar with Monty. I'm not sure how that would go down. Boldenholzer, maybe he's the best option. I'm not sure if Sam Cassell would be a good option just because he was on that bench with Doc Rivers to where he'd be more of like a Doc Rivers scheme type of guy. I don't know. I personally don't know what you do here. But you're just looking over the fact that, right now you're going to need another head coach. You're going to have to do some major things during this offseason. How you're going to build this team again. Because I don't think they're blowing it up. Personal opinion. I just don't see that happening. But, I couldn't tell you anything there. Just looking at some of these other comments right here. Well, not even comments, just looking at some of the stuff from this Woj article. You saw the Harden comment after the game in Game 7 talking about his relationship with Doc Rivers. Our relationship is okay. So that definitely is telling something there. And just looking at some of the other guys on the roster, like PJ Tucker and all that stuff, no one's going to take that PJ Tucker contract to be traded. That's not going to happen. So PJ Tucker's going to be here for probably the rest of that contract. So that's, something to look at. So, and also talking about some stuff with Harden. So this is from the Woj article as well. If Harden opts out of his deal, he is eligible to sign a 4-year, $202 million deal with another team or a 4-year, $210 million deal to remain with the Sixers. The Sixers are unable to sign Harden for a 5th season despite having his bird rights because of the over 38 rule in NBA's collective bargaining agreement. Should Harden leave in free agency, Philadelphia still won't have the cap space to replace him. Instead, the 76ers will have to fill mid-level exception worth a little over $12 million to try to supplement the roster. Oh, God. And honestly, at this point, they're probably going to try to keep Harden. That's what I'm reading and what I'm getting from this report. Because if Harden leaves, you're not going to have the cap space. And then if you sign Harden, it's going to be to an assuming amount of money. Like $210 million divided by 4 years. And that's... I'm trying to do the math in my head just to see how much money that is. So 210 divided... It's $52.5 million a year. You're paying James Harden. And how old is James Harden right now? Like almost in his mid-30s? Probably like right around there. He's 33. He'll be 34 in August. So you're signing James Harden through his age 38 season. So he's going to get worse as he gets older. So you're going to be seeing those very polarizing type of games even more often, which just makes me question even more. So Daryl Morey's going to have a lot of work this offseason. He's going to have his press conference tomorrow afternoon, but I have no idea what he's even going to say because most of his press conferences are a bunch of nothing. He really doesn't tell you anything. Maybe he'll change that this time. I personally don't know. I don't know what to say on that. It's just right now, it's just a bad time because you thought this team was different, and then they turn out and prove you that they were the exact same. And now next year, no one's going to care, in my honest opinion. Maybe like once the season comes around and people get hyped for basketball to start again, yeah, you'll start seeing people caring. But I think like the general public, the general fan and all that stuff, the diehards, it's basically what the hell are you going to do in the playoffs? That's all they care about. Oh, yeah, it's the regular season, the journey and all that stuff. No one's going to care. No one's going to care what you do in the regular season. No one at all. No one at all. It's the honest truth. It just is. People will care more about the Eagles, especially during that point when the Eagle season starts. Start in September, the Sixers start in late October. People are going to be caring way more about the Eagles at that point. So probably the Sixers will be taking the back horse there. The Flyers are not going to be good around that point, so people won't care about the Flyers. Phillies, they take the whole attention from the city in summer. Hopefully they continue to get better. I know last night wasn't good. Barely falter. Nick Castellanos dropping a ball in right field. The errors, oh my God. That's what sucks about West Coast games. Can never watch them. And then also sometimes your teams drop it dead. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. Hopefully the Phillies win today, though. Hopefully that's the case with Zach Wheeler on the bump. But overall, it's just, I don't know what you do. I personally just don't know what you do. I don't have the answers for you guys. I don't. We're just going to have to wait and see. And that's basically it. That's basically it on that standpoint. We do have a voicemail here on the Anytime hotline. So you can leave those at 215-839-9885 with your thoughts and opinions on anything here. If you want to leave anything on Doc Rivers, you can also utilize the YouTube live chat. Always just your preference at that point. So let's get to the hotline here. Voicemail here from Sean. What does Sean have to say about Doc Rivers being fired? What do you got?
So this is the first shoe to drop, the expected termination of Doc Rivers. And to be honest with you, I mean, yes, he did deserve to be fired. His body of work isn't commensurate with keeping his job. But in this case, for what we saw Sunday, I blame the players more than the coach. But, I sit back and look at it as objectively as I can, Amadeo. And we knew Rivers was going to get fired. We know Tobias is probably going to go, and Harden is probably going to go. But is that really enough? I mean, what can the Sixers truly do to shake the whole thing up and get the pieces in here that they really need to get? I mean, I was on a show last night and I said, I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think you have to take calls regarding Joel Embiid. He's the one guy that can bring you back a bunch of assets that you need to rebuild this thing. If not, I just don't know what moves they can make to really make an incremental difference for next year.
Yeah, I don't blame you for thinking like that, Sean. I don't. In terms of, what can they do? I don't know. As I read in the Woj article, if you lose Harden, you're not going to have any cap to bring anyone in to replace anything like that from that type of production. Granted, yes, Harden was terrible in the playoffs, but he also was the assist leader in the NBA. So that's a major floor facilitator that you're losing. And are you going to run, the offense through Tyrese Maxey at 23 years old? That's definitely a huge risk to take there, and a bold move if you're a coach, a new head coach coming into this organization. But if you bring back James Harden, it's going to be for an obnoxious amount of money over the next 4 years. So that's the huge issue in that instance. So I don't know what you do. In terms of Joel Embiid being traded, I just don't think that's going to happen. Even though, regardless of how I feel about Joel Embiid, he's still one of the best players in the National Basketball Association. Regardless of, right now he has no idea how to finish in the playoffs. He doesn't know how to get the job done. And I don't know if you just bring in another head coach and he teaches Joel Embiid how to get the job done. I don't know if you do anything to where if he's constantly in his head and then the pressure gets too much for him, do you get some type of sports psychologist that can help him calm down in those type of moments? I don't know. Do you bring in more players with more experience? We thought that was, PJ Tucker with the way he yells at players on, the bench and on the court. We saw what he did when he was yelling at Joel Embiid, I believe, in the beginning of the Boston series. So there's a lot of things there that, we thought was going to change things, and it just turned into the exact same. I don't know what's going to happen with Joel Embiid, but like I said, I think 95% he's still with the Sixers. The other 5% is that, Jimmy Butler calls and he goes down to Miami. There's definitely a lot of other places you can look to trade Joel Embiid for, but if he gets traded, it's most likely Miami. And in terms of, trying to make another move to make this roster better, you barely have any draft picks. You have a ton of draft picks to get Harden in that trade. You barely have any upcoming first rounders. I don't know what you do. Tobias is gone. You're going to find a way to trade him. I don't know. I don't know. I personally don't know. I don't envy Daryl Morey and what he has to do this offseason. He was one of the reasons why we're in this mess. And he's got to figure out a way to get out of it. Do I trust it? No. It's not like my trust with Dave Dombrowski. It's not like my new founded trust with, Danny Briere and Keith Jones. Definitely nowhere close to that type of trust. Nowhere to my trust with, Howie Roseman and the Eagles stuff. Like right now, the Sixers are the team that I at least trust right now. That's funny because before this, if the Flyers didn't make that front office move, I probably would trust the Flyers even less. But right now, it's shocking that I trust the Flyers more than I trust the Sixers front office. It's basically right now for a lot of people, it's see it before you believe it. That's what my motto is going to be going into next season. I'm going to have to, take note of what they do this offseason, the moves that they're going to make, what head coach they're going to hire, whether it pleases James Harden or not. Like I said, there's reports about Joel Embiid not being happy that Doc was fired. Honestly, I want to look about that. Talking about Joel Embiid not happy. Because I just want to make sure that there's something to be talked about there. Okay, this is from, Skip Bayless. No. Here we go. This is from Stephen A. Smith. Joel Embiid wasn't happy with Doc getting fired. I'm not guessing. I'm telling you. I'm not going to take anything that Stephen A. Smith says seriously. Yeah. I'm not going to take anything that Stephen A. says seriously. It's all hot take TV. I don't like ESPN. I don't watch that stuff. But before we do end this off, because we're getting towards the 30-minute mark, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here before we end it off. Don't know what this team can do to pivot. Harden likely will be gone too. Is there any decent free? If there even is any decent free agents, you're not going to have the cap to bring people in because you're already struggling by the cap as it is. You're already over it. And losing Harden, it's not going to make it any better. So it's a lot of process work that you're going to think of. Scott Lewis, I don't ever want to hear trust the process ever again. Does that mean I got to change my channel name? TTP Sports. Do I have to change my channel name, Scott, for you? So you don't have to think about the process? Brian, how you doing? The San Antonio Spurs, I did see that. Spurs won the draft lottery. And I felt bad for the Pistons. They were the worst team in the league, and they dropped back 3 spots. That sucks. That sucks. But the Sixers having cap space, they're over the cap. They don't have that much to work with. And losing Harden, you're still not going to have much to work with. So Been a fan for 44 years. If they hire Mike D'Antoni, I am done. Morey just won't let this Houston nonsense go. Yeah, I probably. It's like I said, it's no offense to D'Antoni. I think he's a solid coach. I just don't want to appease Harden that badly. I don't want to go into, sucking on Harden to, keep him here. I'm not that desperate, in my opinion. If the Philadelphia Phillies can get to the World Series and the Eagles can get to the Super Bowl, any 13 should be able to get to the championship. Oh, any team in Philadelphia should be able to get to the championship. I wish I had that optimism, Brian. I wish I did. Joel apparently isn't happy about Doc being fired. Harden and Morey actually have more power than anyone. I would take what Stephen S. says with a grain of salt, in my opinion. I just don't trust that hot take shit from ESPN. What do you think about Phil Jackson's not coming out of retirement? That is not happening. I thank you for the compliments, Brian. I appreciate that. Looking forward to first round exit next season, TTP. Hire Stanley Sugarman. Ay. Stanley Sugarman. Yeah. I haven't seen that movie though. I know the name, but I haven't seen the movie though. Jesus. Boy, you're Sixers. They know how to piss the fan base off. Like I said, it's gotten to that point where I trust the new Flyers regime more than I trust the Sixers. It's that bad. My channel is therapy. I appreciate you for that compliment, channel name. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Ay. Decent movie? I don't know. I am a movie guy, but I'm also not. I wouldn't say I'm not. It's just like I don't like, taking the time to sit down and watch a movie. That's just me. I'd rather go to the movie theater, in my honest opinion. I'm more of like a binge watcher of like TV shows and all that crap. That's what I watch. A lot of friends recommend stuff to me, and I watch it, and I binge it for too long. That's what happens. Do you think the Warriors fired their coach and maybe that we can get him? I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think so. I don't think the Warriors are going to be that rash. They've won how many championships over the past so many years? 4. I don't think that's going to happen. 4 or 5. I don't even know the number at this point. Just it. Do you guys want to hear something funny? You guys want to hear something that's really funny? Justin Verlander, we're going to a baseball before we end this off. Justin Verlander made his debut in Citi Field for the Mets. He got booed off the field because he allowed 6 earned runs. Things are not going right for the Mets. You probably say that for a lot of teams around baseball. A lot of teams that you expected to be good are not playing to their expectations. You can even say that about the Phillies too. To a certain degree. I do think the Phillies eventually get out of the squabble, but it feels like every time they get above 500, they lose a couple of games in a row. So, that's it. Julian thinks the Flyers get to the finals before the second round Sixers. I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be. Telling you, Eagles are going to win another Super Bowl before the Sixers see the third round. That's just me. Hell, the Phillies might win a World Series. Personally, I think the Eagles win a Super Bowl in one of the next few seasons. Because, 1, that's how weak the NFC is, and 2, that's how good the Eagles are. So, I wouldn't be shocked if we see Eagles Super Bowl this year. I would not be shocked. So. Oh, no, Brian, I'm not giving up on the Phillies. No doubt. I'm disappointed with the way they've been inconsistent. I do think they eventually get out of it when, Trey Turner finally breaks out of his slump and all that, when Schwarber gets hot. I think they'll be better. It's just, especially since they're on the West Coast. I'm not paying attention as much. We will have a Phillies recap tomorrow, though, recapping the series in San Francisco. I believe tomorrow's game's at 4, so we'll definitely talk about that. But tonight I won't have the recap. I'll probably browse through the game. I probably won't be up late enough to watch it, so there's that. But I think right now we're going to end it off here. Doc Rivers fired. Sixers down bad. It's what it is right now. Don't know what they do to fix it. Just got to wait and see. So I appreciate everyone here for joining as always. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. I'd like to see those. Don't forget to drop a like on the video. Don't forget to check out everything in the description down below. I like to see those as always. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. Join the TTP Sports family. Let's get us closer to 800 subs. Also, use the code TTP Sports, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. It's a great deal. Don't pass it up. Thank you, everyone.